Cool. Let's see if it started for me. Cool. We are live. Right on. Cool. Hey, what's up, y'all? What's up? We're going to wait like 20 seconds. Let some people trickle in, but we got an exciting episode for us. Cool. Actually, we'll just get started right now. Guys, welcome to the Joyage Kingdom. I'm Cage, your guide. I'll be replacing the voice I dread for now, giving you a break from the constant total monologue that is the human mind. I want to say the first thing for listening or viewing, whatever platform you're on. If you haven't already, smash like in this video. If you're in the chat right now, smash like in this video, subscribe to the channel, join the kingdom. We're flying toward 10K. And follow me on Twitter, join the Discord. All the links are down in the description below. We have the Game of Silk's NFT CEO today. It's going to be super exciting. I'm sure there's guys that are in the project that are really excited to hear him talk. We're going to chat it up, talk about life, talk about NFTs, talk about business. I'm sure he's got a lot of alpha to drop. And yeah, we're going to get to it in 3, 2, where's my graphic? 3, 2, 1. And boom, we got Dan on the pod. Hell yeah. Welcome here.
Hey kid, how are you?
Good man. All right. So listen, we're just gonna chat it up. We're gonna let people trickle in. I'm sure some people are trickling in late, but it's fine. So, anyways, let me intro this by saying you are extremely decorated in the art of business and the art of being in the business world, talking to people, managing, starting things from the ground up. That's at least from what I've read and from when I did my research and stuff. What made you do the jump into Web3? What was the catalyst into doing that? Because there's no reason to. I feel like for some people, I'm like, bro, why? Is it just curiosity or?
So I'm a startup technology entrepreneur. That's what I've done my entire adult life. I started with Web1. My first company was an exchange during the early days of the internet. I started my first business right around the same year that eBay and Amazon started in 1994. Went on to start a Web2 company in 2003. And I started a Crypto One company in 2017, and here I am, Web 3.0. So I'm kind of a tech junkie. I love leading edge technology. I can't. It's a habit, dude.
What did you hear about it? What was was it like Gary Vee or something or?
I mean, I've been in crypto since for 5 years now. So funny story. I read about it. I was like, okay, this is cool. I want to try it. I set up a Coinbase account. I bought some crypto. I'm like, okay, I'm going to tinker around with this. And there really wasn't much you could do. You can go on the dark web and buy stuff. That was about it. And, I signed up for a couple of things and just played around with it. And then I forgot about it. And 2 years later, probably, somebody calls me and is like, hey, Dan, have you heard about Bitcoin? It's up to like $6,000. And I'm like, shit, I think I have some of that. And I had like 15 coins that I bought for
$2.
$2.
My God, bro.
And I liquidated them like that.
Oh,
I didn't think
yeah.
like, hey, pause. I sold them, and then then they started going up, and I started trading them, and I made a little bit of money trading them, and then it got away from me, and I spent a lot of time researching it, and I said, you know what, I have a strong conviction for this. I could spend hours talking about Bitcoin and why I think it's going to $1 million a token, but from that day on, I stopped trading, and I buy every day. I have a standing
Every day.
I buy Ethereum and Bitcoin every day. I've done it for the last 5 years. I don't look at it. I don't care what the market is. It makes no difference to me.
Yeah. Wow. Holy crap. So back in what was it, like last May or something, when the market crashed, you didn't even give a shit. You were just like business. Wait, so did you buy more do you buy more during crashes or no?
So I'm very, and I don't know what happens. I just read, and if the market was to tank, I might go in and say, you know what, this is a buying opportunity, because I have a very strong conviction for where this is going. And it's not about hype. It's about the fundamentals of the economy. It's the fundamentals of the technology. I think there's risk. I think there's risk in, regulatory risk and technology risk. And outside of that, this is going to the moon. So I'm in. I'm all in.
Hell yeah. Well, so you had some Bitcoin, had some of the Coinbase stuff, started to get interested in that. NFTs came along. Was your first thought did you hear about it like a long time ago, or did you hear about it when we all heard about it like in the beginning of this past year?
So in 2017, I started, along with two other guys, my first crypto company, and it was a blockchain business in the fantasy football space. And believe it or not, NFTs were the foundation of the economy, right? So the teams were public entities with security tokens that essentially represented the equity, and the players were the NFTs. So these public companies owned one asset, and that was NFTs of players. So we understood that, going back 4 years ago. But we were early. Nobody really understood what the potential for NFTs were.
Mhm. Wow, dude. I don't even back then, I remember in college, I heard a guy, like, I think this must have been 2016 or 2017, a guy, this, of course, he looked sketchy, he had like a big hoodie on, he looked like he hadn't eaten food in a few years, and he's talking about Bitcoin, like you can do this with the Bitcoin, do that with Bitcoin, and you have all these opportunities with the chain and the blockchain, all this stuff. And I remember just at that point, I feel like you had to have been a tech guru, and even my dad, who was like deep in the technology business, had not a single clue what crypto was or what blockchain was, the technology. So when NFTs came along, at that point, I had a background in crypto, but I think the not having a real background in tech and maybe coding and blockchain, all that stuff, really hurt me in the beginning because I don't think for 99% of traders they understand the actual technology underlying NFTs. They just think buy picture, make money, moon. That's pretty much the only thoughts that really go through a DJ's mind.
Right. So I can tell you this: 99% of my sophisticated business network has no clue what an NFT is. Okay, I'm talking about multimillionaires and billionaires, people that are super successful. They're clueless. Okay, this is a space that's going to change the world. When I talk about Web3, I tell people in my lifetime, the biggest invention that changed our world was the internet. And
Mm.
Web3 is, and I talk about it, I mean, the more the blockchain is 10 times bigger. It's going to change the fabric of our society, and they don't get it. And it takes me about 2 hours to literally walk them through it and get them. And NFTs are a big part of it. I mean, there's so much tech. It's not about art. It's not, I mean, I know that's where everybody's head is at because that's what consumers can relate to, right? But
Mhm.
the reason NFTs took off is because you can relate to it. You don't have to understand the underlying technology. You can relate to pictures. You can relate to, games, all of these things. But the reality is the underlying technology is so significant, and most people they gloss over it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At what point did you begin to think, I'm doing my project? Is this something that came across your mind as soon as you thought of NFTs, or did this kind of build into it as your journey progressed?
So, I'm a tech startup. What I do is I'm a tech startup entrepreneur. I start from the ground up. I look at new technologies, predominantly emerging technologies, very early on. I think about them, I learn about them, and then I think about, okay, what can I do here? What can I do to leverage this tech to create something special that's going to create a lot of value for the world?
Mhm.
And I develop a concept, I build a team, I raise capital, I execute, and hopefully ultimately exit the business. And I've done that. 4 out of 5 of my businesses were all tech businesses, and that's what I did. So,
That's
I start
wild,
from the
dude.
ground up. Yeah.
Is that in your blood? How does someone become a tech startup like that? How does it even do you just have ideas and then you've always thought outside the box? Is that something you trained yourself for? Is that just
I think everybody has a unique ability. I think my unique ability is identifying trends, developing concepts, and candidly recruiting teams. I mean, you can't do
Mhm.
this on your own. You've got to surround yourself with super smart people, people that are smarter than you, and build a great team and execute. And that's what I've done, many times over. And look, I'm a home run hitter. I swing for the fences. And guess what? The people with the biggest strikeout records are the home run hitters
Yeah.
because either you're going to hit a home run or you're going to strike out. So if you didn't strike out, if you didn't have failed companies, you didn't take enough risk. And that's what I
Yeah.
do. I'm a risk taker. So we're in a high risk space right now. I think it's a lot more mature than crypto was 5 years ago.
Mhm.
Uh, it's a lot more mainstream, but we have a long way to go. We're still scratching the surface. I mean, there are 2 years ago, there were 500,000 MetaMask wallets, 500,000 in the entire world, right?
Mm.
2 years ago, there was $9 million traded in crypto.
Oh my
Last
god.
year, there was $25 billion. And at the
That's
end of the
wild.
year, 21 million MetaMask wallets, the largest non-custodial wallet in the world. So we're beginning to gain traction. And I would say we're probably a year to 2 years away from true mainstream adopting of this. This is going to change our world, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is gonna be wild. What are your thoughts on because you've been building businesses, you've talk to people who are worth just astronomical amounts of money, who have gotten and brought incredible value to the world, I'm sure. What is it like? Because there's a lot of projects. I don't know what percentage it is, but there's so many projects being started by kids in their college dorm room who haven't a clue as to running anything, and barely can show up to math class on time. Is it even possible to run a brand and to create a brand from this to the ground up with that mentality? Or like, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, look, I can tell you, look, I work with a lot of young, very smart people, and they have people have you're a product of your experience. So if you're young, you're going to have less experience than if you're older, right? You
Mhm.
know, and so as long as you're open-minded and coachable and willing to learn, you can literally drink out of a fire hose.
Yeah.
And the key is to get lucky and find somebody that's going to really kind of put you under their wings and take you there. If you do it on your own, you're going to bump up against a lot of challenges. I did. I started my first company when I was 26 years old. And, that company became a billion-dollar company within 3 years. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was surrounded by super, super smart VCs that
How
basically
does that happen? How do you get surrounded by that? That's everyone's question. They're like, get a mentor. How? Where are they at?
so I joined an organization called YPO, Young Presidents Organization. It's a group of 25,000, global CEOs all over the world. And I was invited into it in my early 30s, and that helped me a lot.
Mm.
But I started a company. It took off. It did really well. And then, when you're doing well, you attract people. And so,
Mhm.
VCs came knocking at my door, and I was a
That's
kid.
wild.
I was like, you know what? Sure, you want to put money into this? That's great. And I always thought they were smarter than me. And guess what? They make They made mistakes too. They guided me. They were like, we're going to ride this company. It's going to be worth billions of dollars. And we were offered tons of money to sell it. And they were like, are you crazy? Why would you sell this now? And I'm like, okay, you guys know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they did. So, smart money is really, it's a euphemism. It's not really, nobody has a crystal ball. So
Right.
go with your instinct. You got to to be an entrepreneur, you got to have balls. You've got to be willing to take a lot of risk, and you've got to be in a position where you can. You're super young. A lot of these young guys out there, if they fall on their faces, they get right back up. They don't have
Yeah.
families. They don't have kids. They don't have wives. So they're able to take that risk. And I encourage you, if you're young, take the risk when you're young, because you have nothing to lose. Swing for
Mhm.
the fences. And that's what I did. And if you're lucky and you hit a home run, or you hit a single or a double, then that gives you the foundation to start building. And if you keep
Mhm.
building, eventually over time, you're going to be very successful.
What are the chances that someone you start a business at like 26 years, like you did, and it hitting just nailing? Is it really just about, because with YouTube, if you show up on the scene tomorrow and you don't have a YouTube channel, you can make a video that people are searching for and instantly get 20,000 subscribers and basically have a home run. Same with business. Is that how it is in business? If you have the idea, you really can just pull it off tomorrow, kind of thing?
No, it's actually, I mean, I'm going to shock you with this, but there's an enormous amount of luck involved. So I don't know if you've ever played poker,
Mhm.
but there are a lot of different variations of poker, right? There's no limit hold'em. There is limit hold'em. There's Omaha. Take a game like Omaha, which has 4 cards in the hole, much higher volatility than no limit hold'em. So there's a lot more risk and there's a lot more volatility. When you start a business, than there is in regular hold'em. When you start a business, depending on what you're doing, there's a tremendous amount of luck involved. You could be the best poker player in the world. You're still going to you're going to go broke,
Yeah.
because luck is involved. And with business, luck is involved too. The smarter you are, the less luck you need, but you still need some luck. And
Mhm.
ultimately, it's being in the right place at the right time with the right concept, meeting the right people. And 90% of new businesses fail, right? So people don't know that, but it's about 90. So the odds are stacked very heavily against you. And I can tell you, I've had great ideas that were too early that failed. Incredible ideas. Had I been
Mm.
there 2 years later, they would have been home runs. Timing is the biggest factor in luck. So, I'm very fortunate to be in a place right now where the market is here. People are
Yeah.
adopting this technology. NFTs, metaverse, blockchain is becoming real. 4 years
Mhm.
ago, it wasn't real. It was something that people began to understand, people began to invest in. Nobody was making money. It was all pie in the sky. Even if you go back to Web 1, companies like Amazon, They lost billions of dollars for 25 years until they made it done, right? They're the most valuable company in the world today, or one of the most valuable companies. They were literally losing money every year for 25 years until they finally, people bet on them, right? People said, you know what, we believe in this. We're going to back this, and we're going to keep throwing money at it until they turn the corner, because it's
Right.
one of these big plays. But you have
Is
to
there a
find the.
time ever to say, you know what, maybe this isn't it? 25 years and not making money, like, I don't know, I feel like most people would be like, "Holy shit, dude, 25 years? You kidding me?" I mean, most people, especially now with NFT projects, I mean, they're launching, making a bag of 5-10 million bucks off the mint sometimes on day one. I'm like, "Holy crap, that's kinda wild." And how you're talking about timing, like timing in the market, but also timing as far as getting that money up front. Like, I know it's probably the same sort of same style as, like, raising money with VCs, but I feel like it's almost too easy now to get a $5 million bag to start.
So I meet a lot of young people that are making a lot of money, and it's a little scary because they have no idea what it really takes to do that. So I will tell you that what's going on in the NFT space is very similar to crowdsourcing. So 10 years ago, you wanted to create yet an idea, but you didn't have the money to develop the idea. You'd go out and say, you know what, I want to make this bottle of water, this drink, but I
Mhm,
need $50,000. So what I'm going to do is, if you sign up and buy a case of this, I'm going to send it to you first. You're going to be one of the first ones to get it. And so if I can get 100,000 people to sign up for a case of this, I now have the money to go out and build it. And then
mhm,
I fulfill it, and all of a sudden I'm in business. NFTs are the same way. You're basically promising people a platform and saying, invest in me by buying the NFT. And then I'll use that money to build a metaverse, to build a platform, to build utility that's going to create value for you. Now, I can tell you that most of those platforms will never be built, because the
mhm.
people that are promoting these platforms have no clue what it takes to build them. And so that's the risk. And that's why there are a lot of rug pulls. That's why there's a lot of negativity in the space, a lot of people losing money.
Mhm.
But within all those projects, there are some great projects. And ultimately, if you look at the history of the web and the history of tech, you have these bubbles, they burst, you have ashes, and then out of the ashes rise the greatest companies in the world.
Mhm.
And we'll see that here. We will see a lot of failures, but then we're going to see some incredible businesses. And it's going to happen fast.
Yeah, how fast do you think? You thinking a couple years? You thinking a decade?
No, I think it's going to be very fast. I think that to build the tech that people promise today is probably a year to 2 years. And so we'll see whether or not these companies can deliver on their promises within that period of time. I mean, at Silks, we're building a platform. We've already started building it. We've raised capital to build it. I've got a massive team of people touching this project every single day. And yet nobody's heard about us because we literally only came out of stealth mode 7 days ago. So
Yeah.
if you were lucky enough to, join our Discord, get on a whitelist, get, on our Twitter feed or whatever, and start being a part of our community this early, it's very rare to see projects like that. But we weren't ready to come out until we really knew we had something. So it's been almost a year now that we've been working on this.
Yeah, tell me your mindset as far as documenting and bringing people along through the journey of building it versus your approach where you did the building first and then you wanted to come out with something first before you kind of went public with it.
So what we did is we wanted to have a rock solid economy. So we wanted to make sure that this was going to work. And it took us about 5 months from where we started to where we ended up to develop the concept. And our business is based on the real world. So we didn't have a lot of flexibility. We knew that we wanted to build something tied to the real world, which limited our ability to design this game.
Mhm.
We had to work with the facts, right? There are 20,000 horses that are born in the real world every year that become racehorses, thoroughbred racehorses. So, by nature, comparing that to a regular NFT project, if I'm going to mint 20,000 horses, that's all I can mint. It's
Yep.
organically scarce. I can't say I'm going to mint 50,000 or I'm going to mint 10,000. I've got to mint the number of horses that are born, right? So that restricted us. And I wanted to get the model right. We wanted to develop technology. We wanted to get the right team in place because when we sold our NFT, we wanted to be able to deliver. And
Mhm.
we're probably a year away from a full blown metaverse to support our entire project. Um, but we're so far ahead of where we started and so far ahead of what most people actually are promising right now. I built this 5 times over, so I know what's involved in doing this, it's not easy. And it's a lot of money, and it's a lot more money than anybody thinks that it's going to be. And you're not going to get it right the first time. So, the public has to be patient. Part of, when you look at public companies that you can invest in, they're so flushed out. You're not, when you invest in a public, when a company goes public, the only companies that go public are companies that are viable, that the bankers have already flushed out. This is an unregulated market. So anybody can start a company, a gaming company, produce an NFT. You have no idea what you're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
And we've
Yeah.
seen successes and we've seen failures, right?
Well, walk me through like what those first conversations are like when you're first getting an idea for an NFT project. Was this your idea to do the horse racing, or was this one of the other I know one of the other founders is the president of a real life horse racing betting company, and I was like, holy shit! I mean, that's definitely necessary if you're going to do this kind of project. Was this your idea? Is this a passion of yours, or how did this begin?
So the NFTs were a passion of mine. Blockchain is a huge passion of mine. And somebody introduced me to Troy, who's my co-founder and the CEO of a public racing, breeding, and syndication thoroughbred company. They own a 200-acre horse farm in Lexington, Kentucky, with about $100 million worth of horses. While I played Zedrun, I dabbled in all the different projects, and he was introduced to me. He had an idea, and I took that idea and I kind of redeveloped it together with him into something pretty magnificent. So it was a collaborative effort.
What would you say your biggest differences are with the other projects that are doing something in the same field?
So the only thing we have in common with, and I'll use Zedrun because Zedrun was really the first horse racing game in the metaverse. And then, there are about a dozen copycats of theirs. They're really apples to oranges, but the fundamental difference is that Zedrun is based on fictional horses and is a player versus player betting game. So if you've ever played online poker, it's like a sit and go poker tournament. You buy a horse and then you find 11 other people that want to race against you for the same prize money. You each put up that amount of money and they pull a slot machine, and whoever wins the pot. What we're building is a derivative metaverse, which means that we are replicating the real world of thoroughbred horse racing. And if I take a few minutes to explain kind of the economics of horse racing and how we're replicating, you'll understand that it's a completely different concept. So, like I said, there are 20,000 horses born a year. They cost about $60,000 a horse to buy them. So there are about over $1 billion of horses sold a year. Once you buy a horse, it takes a year before you can race that horse because they can't race till they're 2 years old. The cost to maintain and train that horse is about $40,000 a year. So before you know it, you're into this for about $100,000. And these horses, once they start racing, there are about 30,000 races they can race in the U.S. Those races attract about 50 million bettors that bet over $11 billion on these races. Yeah, and the tracks take 10% of that money and give it back to the owners of the horses that win. So you're buying a horse hoping to get a piece of that $1 billion in prize money. And in addition to that, if your horse wins races, you can breed that horse. If your horse wins the Kentucky Derby or 50 other races like that, you can get about $100,000 every time your horse breeds. And they can breed if they're a male horse, they can breed about 200 to 300 times a year. So imagine you buy a horse for $100,000 that 2 years later is making $30 million a year in breeding fees, and that you could sell for $200 or $300 million. 2 years later, $100,000 turned into $300 million. There's only one sport you can do that in, and that's horse racing.
But is that possible, moving that into the virtual world with that level of money?
Absolutely. It's exactly what we're doing. You'll be able to buy a horse in the Silks Meadow here. We're going to drop our first horses, the 1-year-old horses in the United States. You'll be able to buy one. And that horse is going to start racing a year from now. And when they start racing, if your horse becomes a great racing horse and wins a major graded race, they'll go on to retire and breed. And when your horse breeds, every time your horse breeds and produces an offspring, we end up minting that offspring into an NFT and selling it. And when we sell it, you get a piece of the action. You get a percentage of every single transaction that takes place. So if your horse breeds 200 horses a year, you're going to get 200 payments a year, equal to a percentage of the sale of that horse. So You could take an investment of $5,000 and turn it into a $100,000 annuity that pays you out for the 25 years that horse breeds and lives.
Mhm.
It's a real economy.
So if you don't win, is there any opportunity to make money if your horse just happens to not be one of the winners, just average right in the middle?
So it's like the real world. If your horse doesn't win, your horse is ultimately probably not very valuable. If it's a male
Mhm,
horse, it's completely not valuable. If it's a mare, it can be used to produce offspring. So you'll be
mhm.
able to actually breed it. You can breed a mare who can have, 13, 14, 15 offspring over the course of their life, and you can make money doing that. You can also pool your horse by staking your horse to a farm in our metaverse and share the risk with other people. Become
Mm,
part of a micro community. You can syndicate your horse to your friends or to people in the open market or to new friends on the metaverse. So you can offset your risk in a lot of different ways. But if your horse is not a winner, you're not going to win. It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's like the real world.
Mm. I remember reading that in the white paper, and so also that was interesting about how you said with the farms too, and how there's public and private farms. Do you is your vision of the metaverse you're creating, is that gonna be like a game where people are in there to like on race day and like maybe once or twice a week they pop into the world, or is this one of those where you're playing like for hours a day kind of thing where streamers can play? Is it that sort of like play to earn game, or what's the style you're looking for or you prefer
Right.
to
So there's a
go?
whole bunch of different things you can do in the metaverse. You can speculate on land. You can just buy land, and then eventually, as it goes up in value, you can sell it, or you can develop it into a farm. You never have to buy a horse. You can develop a farm, build stables, and then bring owners of horses into your stables where you care for the horse and you get a percentage of their winnings. So that's one way to play the game. You can buy a horse and syndicate it and take your money off the table and still own a piece of the horse. Um, you can you can just buy your own stable, build your own farm, build your own estate, trick it out, do all kinds of really cool things, and just have your horses. But you don't race your horse. Your horse races in the real world,
Mhm.
and an average horse races about 6 times a year. They start 6 times a year. When your horse races, you'll be able to go to the real track. So let's say it's Santa Anita in California, or Del Mar, or Belmont in New York, or Churchill Downs in Kentucky. You'll be able to go to the metaverse and to the racetrack in that metaverse and watch your horse race in real time. So every time it races, we simulcast it in our metaverse, and you're
Mm,
watching your
that's pretty
three-dimensional
wild.
animated horse racing. And if you look at our trailer, you'll actually see that. If you go to silks.io and watch the video, you'll watch what a real race looks like in the metaverse. It's pretty incredible.
So yeah, I might be able to pull it up right here. You said it's on the main website?
Yeah, it's on the main website. If you click the trailer, it'll show you how the horses are cloned, because we digitally clone every horse to a real horse. You'll see the avatars, which are your silks, which is your
Mm,
family crest or your identity. It tracks the real world. In the real world, you need a silk to be able to race. That shows everybody who you are, who owns the horse, etc. But yeah, you don't, like in Zedrun, you decide how many times you want to race your horse. You could race your horse 100 times a day.
mhm,
In the real world, your horse will race an average of 6 times a year. And
gotcha.
so, if you want a lot of action, you buy a lot of horses, or you stake your horse to a farm with a lot of horses. And then you
Mm.
own a piece of each, you have a financial interest in a piece of each horse. And if you're on a 10 horse farm, you'll get 60 horses, 60 races a year. If you're on a
What
100 horse farm, you can watch 600 races.
yeah. What are they, 'cause I don't know too much about the real world horse racing. Who does that? Is that like a big spread of people, like, all over the place, different demographics, different salary ranges, and, like, all those things? Or is it, like, mainly a certain group of people who does the horse betting, or
So, so there's horse betting. All right, there's 50 million people in this country that bet on horses. If you look at the world, Japan, Hong Kong, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, England, these are countries that have millions of people that are enthusiasts. So if you were to take the whole world, it's hundreds of millions of people that bet on horses. The number of people that own horses are in the tens of thousands,
yeah.
because it's very expensive to own a horse. Part of what we're doing is we're democratizing horse ownership. An average person will be able to buy a horse, and they will be able to experience the same emotional and economical experience that they would if they owned a real horse. And that's the magic of the metaverse. You can literally become anybody you want in the metaverse, and you can become a real owner of a real thoroughbred racehorse, which historically was relegated to the uber wealthy.
Yeah. Well, that's why I asked it. I was like, this seems like the only the only way normal people are going to be able to get a leg in the game, because it's just like you're up against the best people who know the best people who know all the right things to look for, and they all know the best people to go with, the right breed, and all the things. And so it kind of does democratize that. Is that what
Totally.
the was that the goal there?
That's part of our mission. And we're going to be providing access and education so that anybody can learn how to find a horse, how to read bloodlines, how to track a horse, learn about their history, their earning power, their siblings. I mean, it's a really cool space. I didn't
Mhm.
grow up with this. I learned it, and it's fascinating. It's
Yeah.
like, for those people that kind of learned how to play fantasy football, that took time, and then you immerse yourself in it. You learn how to play poker. I have 200 poker books in my library because, 20 years ago, I got fascinated with poker. I needed to, learn everything about it. I got on the final table of the World Series of Poker.
Wow.
I
Holy
loved
shit.
the experience. It was amazing, but you got to learn it to be good.
Yep.
And with horse racing, it's the same thing. So we're building a massive community of people that want to learn it. It's a blend of people that have never been exposed to it and people that are enthusiasts. And if you go to our Discord and watch the exchanges, it's incredible. You're seeing a lot of learning.
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe it was in the white paper that you guys have. When's the first race coming? Is that somewhat soon after the mint, or is that a while after? You said, was it a year for at
So
least seeing it in real
so
life?
our first drop are avatars. Those are your identities, right? So that's going to be your three-dimensional character
Mhm.
that's going to represent you in the metaverse. After that, we're going to be dropping our first crop of horses, which are the yearlings. Those are 1-year-old horses. Those are going to drop sometime in the July timeframe, and they're going to be a year away from racing. So between the time that you get a yearling and the time they actually start racing is about a year. And during that period, we're going to be building out the metaverse. We're going to be creating all kinds of interesting experiences. You'll be able to trade your horse.
Mhm.
That activity is called pinhooking. So this is really interesting for your audience to hear. When you buy a horse that's unraced, that's 1 year old, the only way you value that horse is based on its bloodline. Who were his parents? How well did they do? Who are its siblings? And then when the siblings race, so while your horse is 1 year old, 1.5 year old, if they have a sibling, a half brother or a half sister that race in a big race and win, your horse goes up in value 5 to 10
Oh
times,
yeah.
right? Because people are looking and saying, oh, wow, your horse was born to that father, and
Mhm.
that father just sired another horse that won a big race. Your horse has a lot of potential. So a
Mhm.
lot of people are in the business of just trading horses. The term
Yep.
horse trading comes from that. And so we expect a lot of people to be doing that. You'll be able to make money buying a horse in a drop, and then, figuring out what its horse is, what its siblings are doing, and and selling your horse when it gets more value, when it grows in
When
value.
on that first drop of the horses, is there gonna be a way for people to know uh like how well the like I mean, the parents aren't technically gonna have existed. So have you guys factored that in at all, or is that gonna be one of those things like we have to wait till the first year?
So every horse that we sell in our drop is a real horse, right? They have real parents that are alive, and they have real siblings. And a horse that's 1 year old has
Mhm.
probably hundreds of siblings that are half siblings that are already racing.
Gotcha.
You will have access to all that data. When you get your horse and it's revealed to you, you'll be able to look at who the mother is, who the father is, who the siblings are, what their lifetime's earning were. You'll be able to grade your horse and understand how valuable it is. You'll also know how much your horse sold for at auction. Did your horse sell for $20,000 or $2
Mm,
million? Right? If you're lucky enough to get a horse that sold for $1.5 million, you're probably going to make a lot of money.
yeah.
It's like when you buy an NFT, when you buy, an NFT in a drop today, and it
Yep.
turns out to be rare, you can flip it and make a lot of money. Well, guess
Mhm.
what? If you get a super rare in the sense that, they're the child of two championship horses and they sold for a lot of money, you're going to make a lot of money. It's a gamble.
Man,
The
dude.
first the
Yeah.
first leg in the game is gambling, right? Because you
Right.
don't know what you're getting. It's like opening up a pack of baseball cards. When you buy a pack of baseball
That is the
cards, that's
best part,
gambling.
yeah.
So that's where it starts.
I love doing that. Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's where it all starts.
How much of the idea has stayed the same on day 1 when you had an idea and you got a group of people, so here's what we wanna do? How much has changed? And, like, have any crazy weird hiccups happened in between the beginning and now?
So I will tell you, with every company I've ever started, you're turning 360 degrees at least 3 or 4 times before you get to the final product.
Oh,
And if
man.
you don't, there's something wrong. So I
Yeah.
would say that from where we started and where we are right now, yeah, 5 months of a lot of idea changes. Because, we come up with a concept and then we have to test the economy and see, is this going to work? Well, what happens if this happens or that happens? And how do we gamify it? How do we create enough interest, right? So I'll give you an example. You buy a horse, and that horse races 6 times a year and has a life cycle of about 4 years of racing. And if it's good, it started 24 times in its lifetime. Now it retires and it starts breathing. That's not enough action for the average person. In our
Mhm.
world, everybody has ADD, right? You want action. You want action, right? So how do we create action? Well, let's see. What if we create these horse farms, and you can put your horse in a farm with 10 other people and now 9 other people. And now you have 10 horses that you have a financial interest in.
Mhm.
Well, now there are 60 races. And now you can build a relationship with all these other people.
Mhm.
Okay, that's interesting, right? Okay, well, what if your horse dies? You bought a horse and a year later it dies. Well, you're out of luck. But what
Yeah.
if I syndicate the horse? Well, I offset my risk. Or what if I put that horse in a farm and stake it with a bunch of other people? Well, now, even if your horse isn't productive anymore, you've got other people and other horses that are still yours that you have an interest in.
Mhm.
So these are the kind of things that we deal with when we develop these economies.
How many people is necessary to build something as complex as that? Because I know when I reviewed your project, I was astounded by the amount of people in the team, and I don't know how many projects have that amount of people and just don't choose to list everybody. But is there how important is delegating when you're building a business that you're trying to make into assume a $1 billion industry?
So, if you're going to build a quality project, you need a lot of people. I mean, we're building them. If you take Fortnite, for example, as a video game, right? You know, I would say that there are 500 people that were probably involved in developing that game. Now, that game was developed several years ago, so technology advances pretty quickly. There is nobody building a high quality metaverse project without millions of dollars having been raised beforehand and having
Mhm.
a team of super competent, experienced people, in the dozens, right? 40, 50, 60 people, unless you're outsourcing
Yeah.
it. And even then, you need an internal team of, a dozen people. So,
How do you evaluate like when you're in this industry, especially with NFTs, where everything's go, 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 and you need shit done yesterday, how are you giving people like 2 weeks, and you're like, we needed that last week. That you're done. Is it that quick with delegating and moving past people and hiring and firing, or what is it like, and how different is it to where you've built companies in the past?
so I will tell you that the velocity of movement here is unprecedented. I've never seen it. You know, in 1995, when the internet was formed, right? The internet was built in 95 and came out to the public. I thought that was the most incredible thing I'd ever seen, and the amount of wealth that was being created was off the chart. I've never seen it before, and it was truly unprecedented. And I didn't think I'd ever see it again. And in 2017, I saw it again, even
Mhm.
bigger with crypto. And I can tell you now, there's nothing like this that's ever happened. I feel like I'm under a waterfall with my mouth open, and I can barely catch water. It's that crazy. It's unprecedented. But no, it depends on the culture you're trying to build. If you want
Yeah.
to build a real culture in your team, no, you don't let go of people. You develop them, right? You work with them. I mean, if people don't have a great attitude and they don't work well as a team, you get rid of them and you move on. But generally, you try to rehabilitate people. You try to develop a culture and a great working environment. I mean, I can tell you, and you can ask anybody that works with me in any project I've ever been involved in, that once you work with me, you'll never go back to working in a regular company again because you're going to understand how incredible it is to do something so meaningful and so exciting that makes work feel like play. And
Mm.
work feels like play for all of us. Every single person in any company I've ever worked in um, feels like they're having fun. They don't feel like they're going to work. Do you feel like you're going to work right now?
Hell no. This was my favorite thing. Podcasting is my absolute. I want to be Joe Rogan one day. That's the goal. So hopefully I'll
You
get there.
see, you found your you found your calling. You're never going to go
Yeah.
back to doing anything else as long
Yeah.
as you can make it this way, kid.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Especially once you've had that taste, a true taste of what it was like to. I mean, what this was for me was in the summer of last year, I believe it was. I decided to quit my jobs, and I had a few $1,000s saved up. I made some accidental money with Dogecoin, and I was like, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna quit everything, jump in my car, and travel the world, and live in Walmart parking lots and Holiday Inns and steal coffee, basically." So that was the goal. I traveled everywhere. I did that for like 6 or 7 months. And after that experience, and I was door dashing about halfway through, I needed money. So I started door dashing on the side, and I got a taste of what it was like to really hustle and actually get rewarded for your hustle. You know, if I did an extra 2 deliveries, I got an extra $30 or whatever it was. And so when I noticed that, I was like, well, that was nice. You know, I went from serving, which is sort of similar, you know, it's sort of still commission based, but not really, to door dashing where there's no boss. And you're right. If it was, I mean, it still felt like it worked a little bit, but it definitely was a stepping stone to me to get here and to continue doing the things that I liked because it's easy, you know, if you really like to do it. Um, and for you, what's the best part? Is the best part the software, like the building part? Is it the talking to people, connecting? What's your favorite part about building the businesses?
Creating value for everybody, right? So I measure myself as the CEO of any company I've ever started with. Is my team learning? Are they making money? And are they having fun? And if your team is doing all those three things, you're going to hit a home run, right? You don't have to have a great idea. If you have a team that's learning, making money, and having fun, you're golden.
Mm,
You know, and
yeah.
that's how it works. And you said something really interesting. If you don't sweat to earn your money, if you don't appreciate what it takes to earn money,
Mhm.
it's not fun. It's not valuable. Like,
Yeah.
you know, lots of people make money lots of ways. And, when you create value for yourself, it's very special. And
Yeah.
it's a very different, you appreciate it very differently.
Yeah. And actually, speaking of that, of like that perspective and the mindset you get from that, how do you think do you think the generations that have lived through the dot com and not even lived through it, but lived in it in a professional setting where they're working in it, or maybe they were directly affected by it, are they at an advantage or a disadvantage, you think, to like people who are in their 20s who are starting NFT projects who haven't actually lived through that and seen what it was like to go through exactly what we're going through right now, basically, which is what everyone's saying is going to be another bubble that bursts and then there's 10 companies left kind of thing.
Look, I will tell you something. I mean, you're asking me, so I'm going to give you a candid answer.
Yeah.
I interview 20-something-year-olds every day. I mean, hundreds of them. And there's a lot of naivety out there. People don't, this generation, this young generation, doesn't understand the significance of loyalty, the significance of sweat equity. They see people making money overnight and they think, they have a sense of entitlement. And that's going to hurt them, unfortunately, because the bubble will burst. Kate, history repeats itself, and that's not a cliche. It's
Mhm.
not. It's a true adage. Anything that's happened in the past is going to recur again in the future. And so, what we're going through right now is a massive technology change that's going to impact our world and create incredible value for a lot of people and for the entire world. But throughout, for that process to take place, things are going to have to break.
Yeah.
You always see chaos before you see order. When you look at the history of our country, what did we have? We had the Wild West, right? Before we had, true order. We're in Colorado right now, so this is where it all happened, right?
Yeah.
You look at the revolutions in the world. You need a revolution before you have stability, and
Yeah.
so that's what we're going through right now. We're going through chaos right now. Everybody sees something. Everybody jumps into it, but it's going to take time before we see order. And it
Yeah.
happened once before. It happened in Web 1.0. It happened in Web 2.0. It happened with crypto, right? Who are the survivors of crypto right now? The companies that are truly, building platforms that have
Yeah.
value. But there was a lot of hype before that. NFTs, I would say that most of these projects that you see out there are going to go to zero. Will there be some great art projects that sound? Absolutely. I like to compare it to, the 19th American art. If you look at somebody like Andy Warhol, who took a Campbell soup and turned it into, a $200 lithograph, and 40 years ago, and now those lithographs are worth, $500,000. Yeah, CryptoPunks, Bored Apes, those kind of things may have the staying power to represent history, right? If you go back and look at a Ty Cobb, baseball card that was sitting in a pack of cigarettes, in the late 1800s or early 1900s. Who would have guessed that those things are worth millions and millions of dollars today? Nobody.
Yeah.
They would have said you're crazy. So yeah, do I think that there's collectability? Absolutely. Do I think there's collectability across the volume of projects that are going on? Absolutely not. Do I think that there's viability in metaverse projects like what we're doing? 100%. What we're doing is something that is steeped in a real economic foundation, right? Every dollar that goes into our project is owned by the community. It sits there in a Federal Reserve, in a treasury wallet that backs the community. It's not a Ponzi scheme. A lot of these projects are Ponzi schemes. You're only as good as the next person that comes in. And if people stop coming in, the whole thing falls apart, right? I'm not saying it's bad or it's good. It's just that's what it is, right? Versus projects that are based on, that are DAOs, right? That are foundationally communally owned projects. Like, we're the sponsor of this project. But at the end of the day, everybody that joins the community owns a piece of this project. You buy an avatar, you buy a horse, you buy land, you buy structures, you're investing in a metaverse. That metaverse is backed by the money you put in. You know, so it's a very different value proposition. And
I was going to say, how different is it having people who are going to buy your NFT versus maybe, buying a stock or not? I mean, I feel like we haven't anything like that before. So
it's the same thing, right? So the way a public company works is somebody comes up with an idea. They put millions of dollars in to build the idea into something. When it starts making money, they decide, you know what, we're going to share it with the public. They take the company public and they sell stock. Now you can buy stock in that company. You're an owner in that company. Okay. In the NFT world, it's the same thing. Somebody comes up with an idea and they say to the public, if you invest in this idea, right, you can be an owner in it. In the companies that are structured the right way. And if enough people, like, look at the history of video games, of gaming, right? You had these big public companies that produced a title. Everybody came in and played the game, but who made the money? The public company made the money. No user made money. You didn't own a single skin that you bought on Fortnite, right? You didn't own you don't own anything. Now the future is the convergence of gaming, gambling, and investing. Users are saying, we're not going to do that anymore. If we're going to play your game and we're going to build value in your community, we want to own a piece of it. We want to own our assets. We want a seat at the table. We want governance, and we want to make money. And that's the future of gaming. And that's what we're seeing right now. And those games that deliver that value will thrive, and that will be the future. Like, look at fantasy sports. Fantasy sports 30 years ago was played in the basement of somebody's house, reading newspapers to settle the contests. Poker, I mean, you won't remember this. Poker was a game you played in your basement with friends. Nobody talked about it. And all of a sudden, online poker came out. Poker stars invented it. And, now 60 million people a year in the United States play poker. 60 million people a year play fantasy sports. It's a massive part of our society. Same thing's going to happen with metaverse. Same thing's going to happen with what we're building. We think that there is the potential to create a new category of gaming entertainment in the world. And it's happening as we speak right now. And we're not the only company doing it. We're doing it in a very unique way. Nobody's doing derivative gaming like we are. Nobody's creating a game out of real world events and real world assets. We're the only company doing that today. But people are doing very innovative things, and I think we've got a long way to go, and we're going to see some very cool projects. But there's a lot of crap out there.
There
and you review this stuff, so
then there are a bunch of projects where I've seen a lot of projects. You're right. You're absolutely right. I think the most exciting part is how you just said a second ago with owning the assets outside of the game, or I mean in the game, but also outside the game. They're literally yours. You own them, and I think that's the easiest way to explain it for gamers. You're like, if, Fortnite goes under, like all the fucking money you spent on everything in the game it's gone forever. Like, you don't own it. It's not yours. And for the NFT, you hold that exact one. And that's why I always push brand. I say, if you have the strongest brand and people are excited to hold your NFT and be that, be number 307 of whatever project you are, and you come out with your own TV show or your own game or your own whatever, and maybe they do an animation or a trailer and you're like, oh my God, that's my NFT. Like, that's not just mine. Like, that's literally mine. And I think that's going to be absolutely nuts, because that'll create true brand outside of itself. Like, I think it's interesting when people talk about community here, like especially with like Gary Vee, how people, rally around Gary Vee and Gary Vee's brand of V Friends. While there is community together, the real community is each person's individual connection to Gary. Each person feels like Gary's speaking to them, so their connection to Gary is so strong, and so that's what the people who are holding his V1, and that's gonna be the most important thing. Is
And they
there a
feel
way
like they
to?
want a piece of him.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Is there? I I think there will. Is that how you're anticipating it's going to be with the horses because it's a derivative horse, because it's a real world horse? You're like, that's literally it right there.
You'll literally be able to go to a track and watch your horse race. Okay. And you're going to feel the same emotional connection to your horse that the real owner of the real horse will feel. And when that horse wins $1 million prize purse, one day you're going to win $1 million because your horse, seriously. When you look at we haven't shared our economic model. When you look at the economic model, it takes about 6 years before our economy reaches parity with the real racing industry, and where we're creating enough revenue from the sale of our horses to distribute prize money that's equal to the prize money in the real world. In the real world, you make your money because the tracks take bets and give you a percentage of the bets. In our world, we redistribute the money from the sale of our horses to the winners of the races and to the winners that breed horses that get sold on our platform. And when you look at the economics, and we haven't published a lot. Believe it or not, that giant white paper that you read is scratching the surface on how deep this project is. If you were an investor, we've raised a lot of capital from a lot of very smart people that have looked at this project and said, this is the future. This is one of the most amazing metaverse NFT projects that we've ever seen. And some of the smartest people in the space have put money into this. They're privy to a lot of information that the community is going to get very soon. And when you see it, it's astounding. This has the potential to be a $10 billion economy, virtual economy, in just a matter of years. And it sounds crazy, but it can really happen. If we build the community, it will come.
Yeah. And I want to go back to when you said about the chaos before the rainbows. And this is the chaos in the Wild West that we're fighting through, and just the amount of projects. But wondering if you had any thoughts on ApeCoin that just dropped the other day, from like a business side, business savvy mind that I'm sure lit up when you heard about some of the tokenomics and the economics around it.
Sure. That's a really good question. So I'll share a couple of things with you. I don't know how many people in your audience know. Do you know what ApeCoin? Do you know what Bored Ape Yacht Club sold for in their original mint?
0.08, right?
0.08. These projects are successful because they actually have a really strong brand. Brand is one of the most valuable things that exists in the world of business today. Bitcoin has a really great value proposition, but anybody can knock off the Bitcoin code. The reason Bitcoin is so valuable is because of its brand. Coca-Cola, anybody can knock off the Coca-Cola recipe, create an even better Coke. But Coke's brand represents 95% of its multi-billion-dollar value. ApeCoin, look, they're piggybacking on the brand, I would never take a bet against a strong brand. So if you believe in the Bored Ape Yacht Club brand, then the ApeCoin brand will thrive and piggyback on it. It's just a question of how they create utility and how long that brand stays strong. But I think that's your bet. Like when I bet on Bitcoin, I'm betting on it because I think fundamentally the value proposition is there. And when people say, well, aren't there better technologies out there? Aren't there better blockchains out there? My response is nobody's even close to Bitcoin's brand, and nobody's going to get close to it. And so that's what I'm betting on. I'm betting on the fact that, it has a great technology. It may not be the best technology, but its value proposition is the store of value is there. It's the single most asset. It's the only asset in the world truly organically scarce. You can't print more coins. And as long as the technology and regulatory risk goes away, it's the number one brand in the space by orders of magnitude. And I'm not going to compete with that. So I would say the same thing about the ApeCoin.
Yeah, and another thing that's interesting about the ApeCoin, I'm doing a full breakdown on it. And one of the things that I overlooked, but I feel like most people probably overlooked it, but it was interesting to me. I was wondering your thoughts on it. That Ape Coin or Ape Token is totally separate from Bored Apes and Yuga Labs. Like they did a Twitter Space last night, and they were like, "There's a reason that the Yuga Labs team and the Bored Ape team was not on this call." It was like, "This is the Ape Coin board advisor or the board council members. Like it is just us." And I was like, I don't know if people caught that. They're like, they're the same brand, but they're also like completely separate. And I was wondering if is that like, have you seen anything like that before? I don't know if I've seen something where they're completely separate like that, where if Bored Ape made a mistake, ApeCoin literally could just kind of go right as the board the output goes left. And
I
I was
mean,
wondering
you
your thoughts
have a
on that.
lot. You have a lot of businesses that have, they syndicate their brands. Take Virgin, for example. They have 3 or 4 different products that are completely disconnected. You have companies, you'll stay at a Marriott hotel thinking that it's one company. They're just shilling for, a private hotel that's using the Marriott brand. So you don't really know, but again, it goes back to brand. It goes to the fact that it's such a strong brand, maybe it can stand on its own. I don't really know much about it. I don't think most people do. And I think
Well, it's so new.
It's so new. And ultimately, the success is going to come from, do these people have a vision? Are they going to do something with it that's going to create value? Now, look, you mentioned Doge earlier, right? And you made some money on that. Doge is really, it's hype, right? There's no utility to that. But I'll give you another example that you and people listening might appreciate. All these meme stocks, like AMC, for example, or GameStop. So, why don't you bet against those companies? And the reason is because those stocks can truly become store of value. Forget their underlying businesses. If enough people say, let's use AMC as a store of value, its underlying business may be worthless, but we're all going to agree that the stock is valuable. You'll lose your shirt if you short that stock.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that is very true.
Creating a brand. Like, I'm looking to some of the comments on the side over here, and people get it. You build a strong brand. It doesn't matter what the underlying business is. People rally around it.
Yeah. No, I remember that was fucking wild. Before meme culture was kind of established as a thing, I couldn't believe it was happening. I just heard rumblings, or like, some Reddit people were trying to just screw over these like companies, and they were like, back to the people. And I was just like, no chance that happens. For that to happen, all of these things would have to happen at the same time. No one would have to. It's like saying to your class in school, like, yo, let's all like not take the test today. Let's all just walk out or something. Like that only works if everyone actually does it, and it never happens. And so when that happened, it was wild, bro.
I'll tell you, my first economics class in college. Walk into the class, we sit down. I didn't know what economics was. The teacher grabs a bunch of quarters. I think he had like 20 quarters in his hand. And he said, I'm going to drop these quarters on the floor. And anybody in the room can pick up a quarter. You can take as many as you want. There's 20 of them on the floor. But here's the deal. Every minute, that quarter is going to double in value. So in a minute, it's going to be worth 50 cents, and then it'll be worth $1. And if you just have to stand there and wait. If you pick it up, it's only worth what it's worth at that time. And guess what? You think the class sat there and waited for them to be $20 a piece? No, they were gone in a second.
Wow. That is so interesting.
But that was my first lesson in economics, right? It's very hard to collaborate, but we're in a world right now where the power of the people is truly, because of the interconnectivity, because of social media, because of what we're doing right now, is something unprecedented. And when you look at silks and what we're doing with horse racing, we're really empowering people to decide, how big do you want this to be, right? We're starting this economy very small. And it's just a question of how big the community wants it to be. If every year the price of the horses go up, this economy will be as big as the real economy. It'll be a multi-billion-dollar economy in no time. It's all about who's participating and how they want to play. We don't control it. It's the people that control it. We're just setting it up.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty. It's like, we're sponsoring this, and ultimately we're stakeholders, right? We end up, any DAO that goes out there, the original people own 100% of it that sponsor it. And over time, as the tokens get into the marketplace, we own less and less of it. Ultimately, we'll own a very small piece, just like if you're a public company. When I started my first company, I owned 100% of it. By the time the company was sold, I owned 20% of it. Okay? So,
Wow. Yeah.
but if you own 20% of a giant business, it's better than if you own 100% of nothing.
That's very true.
So,
That is very true, Dan. Well, listen, as we bring to this podcast to a close, had one question that would probably help a lot of people listening, because I know there's a lot of people who are, well, I think they're interested in the idea of building a business, making their own NFT project, doing something, leaving their mark on the world. And I remember before I had left on my trip and started this YouTube and podcast thing, um, I feel like everyone kind of thinks they're made to do something on this world. Everyone thinks they're here to change the world or whatever. And if you look back on your life, for most of us, like we haven't actually, there's nothing much we did on paper. You're like, oh, well, I think I'm special. I think I did these things. You look on paper, you're like, well, I haven't really done anything actually other than go to school and get a job. Do you have any advice for people who want to get started into business, and also maybe more advice that are tailored toward Web3 and how they can maybe get started working in Web3, getting jobs or making connections?
sure. So I think any Web3 company out there that's worth its salt has incredible opportunities. I mean, we're hiring all the time. Whether you're a mod, whether you're an intern, whether you have a specific skill set that we can tap into. We hire at Game of Silks all the time, and I'm sure companies like ours are doing the same thing. So there's no shortage of opportunities. I do think that this is a moment in time in the history of the world where you don't see these events happen very frequently. In my life, I've seen it happen 3 times, and I can tell anybody that's listening here, if you have an interest in this category, get into it, get involved in it. And what I can tell you is the path to success is just sticking with it, picking something, sticking with it, building your knowledge and building your experience. And it takes time, but over the long haul, if you stick to one thing and you build an expertise in it, you're going to create value for yourself because you're going to be more valuable for other people. And that's how it works. I'll give you one kind of analog to that in my life. I was a lawyer. I went to law school. I practiced law at a big firm. I grew up watching a show called LA Law, which precedes your birth, and that of most people here. But it was a show about big law firms, and they used to talk about how you have to be a rainmaker to become a partner at a law firm and become very rich. And I was like, well, what is a rainmaker? A rainmaker is somebody that can bring in big clients.
Yeah.
And I said, how the hell am I going to do that? I'm graduating law school. I don't know anybody important. And I learned after practicing law for a couple of years at a big firm, the way you become a rainmaker is you do your job and you do a great job. And the clients that they assign you to are going to recognize that. And soon they're going to ask for you. And when they start asking for you, the firm recognizes that. And all of a sudden you become important. And now you're a rainmaker. And that's how you become a partner. And it's the same thing here. If your head is down and you focus and you don't have a short-term horizon, most people today are looking for the quick buck. There is no quick buck. There's no such thing as a free lunch. That's the second thing I learned in economics. Okay, everything you got to earn. That's the way it is. If it's free, you're the sucker. Somebody's paying for it, right?
Yeah, it's true.
That's my. Unfortunately, we all suffer ADD today, and the young generation today, they want everything fast, and the world doesn't work like that. Yeah, could you get lucky? Absolutely, but pick something that makes you happy and focus on it. And I can promise you that, you need a little bit of luck, but those are the first 2 things you need to do to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was fortunate that I'm definitely still part of the generation that is super entitled, but I grew up in a environment where I had grown up with everyone else who was rich and wealthy around me. Because I went to a private school, but my dad worked there, so I got free tuition. So we weren't like anyone else in the school. So I was literally the ugly duckling my entire life. So everything I had to do, I had to grind my ass off for. I couldn't even afford club soccer, so I played rec. I had to earn my way up. And so everything for me I had no choice but to build, and it took like years to do everything. So I got used to it. But I think you're right. And also one thing as far as to build onto that idea of becoming important and becoming a big asset to the company or an asset just in general to where you can land a job or whatever, that self-esteem has to, at least in my experience, has always been built and earned over time. And my confidence sort of grew in like little stages and speed humps. And it would just boom, and I would ramp up and get a little bit more self-esteem, a little bit more self-confidence. But I also had to take a couple classes in like public speaking to be able to speak my word and get it out in the way I wanted to. And I don't know if that worked at all, but what are your thoughts on self-esteem? And Yeah.
Yeah, you have to, you have to build confidence. You have to, absolutely. I mean, those are foundational elements to success, right? And I would go back to, you talked about people interested in getting in Web 3.0. Find a project, do your research, find a project, whether it's what we're doing at Silks, there are dozens of other great projects out there, and get involved. I mean,
Yeah.
it's easier than it's ever been in the history of the world to get attached to something. And you make a difference, people are going to recognize it. You're going to build
100%.
skills. Talk about confidence and self-esteem. Today, in this world, you can be anonymous, right? Even if you don't like who you are in the real world, you can reinvent yourself in the metaverse, right? That's a big part of what these avatars are. It's a big part about what these projects are. You can be whoever you want to be. And if I can create the same emotional connection and the same economic success in the virtual world that you can have in the real world, what's the difference?
Yeah.
Same thing. It's the same thing.
Yeah, that is a super great point. And for anyone listening, Spy Kids 3, that was the very end of the show. At the very end of the movie, everyone popped out of the game. The three cool guys at the end, they popped out, and then the two main characters popped out, and they were like, wait, that's what you look like in real life? And they're like, doesn't matter, bro. Like, this is what I am in the game to you. Like, this a totally separate thing.
It's totally like when you talk to people and you don't see their faces. And by the way, look, this whole, anonymous culture, there are people that are running, very valuable businesses and raising capital, and nobody knows who they are.
Yeah.
And,
it's wild.
and maybe you wouldn't invest in them if you did know who they were. So, we're in a world where you can be anybody you want to, and that's a big part of what we're doing too, right? At Silks, you can build an empire.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And it's
Yes,
real.
it's gonna be a crazy, crazy world. And listen, anyone who is listening still, if you've been here since the beginning, especially, thank you so much. I'm sure you learned so much because I had a literal one-on-one business course with Dan here, and that was incredible to get just a little bit into the brain of someone running a company and who's built so many companies. So I just want to say thank you for coming on and spreading this knowledge. It was amazing.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, and it's very nice to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, if you made it to the end, if you guys made it to the end, code word's going to be, man, should we just get Dan, all caps, Dan in the chat? Just scream Dan. That'll be the code word if you made it so that I know. Hell yeah. Well, guys, we appreciate being here. Subscribe to the channel, join the kingdom, click the like button, follow Twitter. I have his links and the project's links down below in the description. Thanks for being here. Until next time, continue on your Joyage. Continue to learn and be grateful for your life watching this video. Bye.
Bye.
And